True story. I was working on my son's recurve this spring. I was doing something with the string, and I don't recall, but I had cause to take the Selway slide-on quiver off. And when I did, it dawned on me, that sucker's over 30 years old. I mean, I can't tell you how many bows that thing's been on, but that thing has been on some pretty good trips, and it's been on some pretty miserable trips. And it still works well today. Just new grippers once in a while, depending on my arrow material, a few new foam hoods. But what a poor business model to make a product that lasts a lifetime. Well, I got a few more Selway quivers these days, but I'll tell you, pretty solid when you spend your money and a product lasts over 30 years. Give Selway Archery a call. Buy once, cry once. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Stickbow Chronicles, brought to you by Blackwidow Bows. I'm Rob Patuto, and I am flying solo this morning. I didn't even invite Blake because I just feeling a little nostalgic. It's Thanksgiving morning, and it was a good time to reflect, a little reflection. First off, let me get the business out of the way. We got a second straight week of Kodiak Adventure. This week we've got Dr. Ben Pinney and our very own reporter in the field, Bryan Burkhardt. Yeah, those guys headed back up again this year. And so we got 2 weeks in a row of Kodiak Adventure. You know, it's a beautiful morning here. The sun is hitting the mountain across the way. I can see it out my window. Snow-covered mountain. It's cold. I should be out hunting, or I shouldn't say should. I could be out hunting. I hit it hard this November and didn't pan out. I passed, actually had a doe that I drew on. Would have been fun. It was a great shot. Would have been, it's like perfect standing right where I had fully expected a 170-inch buck to be standing, but lo and behold, here was a doe. But I actually came to full draw, knowing I wasn't going to shoot her, just kind of practicing. She had two fawns that... Oh, they just looked a little too small. I just couldn't bring myself. I don't need to kill something that bad. Had a lot of good times in the stand this year. Not really what I had hoped for, but it is what it is. And, every time I'm out there, my wife and son, they're home or doing their thing, and it's time now I'm not spending with my family. So just thought, no, that's it. I don't want to be hunting too hard. I'm big on not hunting too hard and keeping the main thing. So here I am talking to you all. Before you reach for that dial to fast forward through this, let me warn you. I know who you are. I will sneak over to your house, turn the lights on in your car at night or truck, and drain the battery. So give me a minute. Don't do it. Just want to talk about friendships a little bit here. In my world, pre-social media, pre-Facebook and all that crap, a friend was always somebody you had looked in the eye, and shook their hand at least, but most likely, had lots of face-to-face interactions with. But in this world, today, this new world, what passes for a friend is somebody you've messaged a lot with and, spoke on the phone maybe a few times, but you message often. And I kind of come to accept some of that. It's still really weird to me, but it's legit, man. Here I'm telling you what I'm thankful for. And it's those friendships that I've made over the last 2.5 years of this podcast. 2.5 years of this podcast. I had call this year to, a couple of incidents like in the same week, like in a span of 10 days, where I kind of was getting beat up from two different sides, like blindsided. on one and had to take a stand on the other. And that often puts you on an island. I mean, that is life, right? I'm not whining, but puts you on an island. And I just thought, piss on it. I don't need this. But people that I've never looked in the eye or never shook their hands that come up alongside you and say, no, man, we got you here. This is not cool. We got your back. Man, I'm so thankful for that. And I wouldn't know these people. You all know who you are. I wouldn't know these people had it not been for the podcast. So really fortunate to have met, quote unquote, virtually met so many cool people. Yeah, I'm thankful for that. I'm also thankful for the listeners, the messages I get. I met, yesterday? 2 days ago? I don't remember. Somebody, was messaging me about some arrow components and said, hey, you do so much for the traditional archery community. I'd like to buy these for you. Like, man, I mean, that's just so awesome. I so greatly appreciate that. And I'm not talking about a manufacturer or a business owner, just some dude. I'm just so thankful. And I said, no, I can't do that. It's pretty crazy. The next one I want to say, a bit about is Compton Traditional Bowhunters. It means so much when a business or an organization like them, step up and say, hey, man, we really like what you do. We support you in this. And it goes for the sponsors too. I mean, it's a responsibility, a great responsibility comes with that. I mean, people put their trust and faith in you. I mean, wow, I appreciate that. For Comptons to come up alongside me and say, hey, you know what? We love what you do. They put me in their magazine. The advertisement for the Stickbow Chronicles, and they send me that questionnaire, and I fill that out, and they did a story on me. It's kind of weird, and it's not really my style, but greatly appreciated. That was super cool. So that organization, that group, I really look forward to working with more. I think it's a great group. The board, all the officers, again, not people I've looked in the eye, not people I've shook their hands, but I consider them friends. And then just one more thing, don't just bear with me, for crying out loud. Driving the kid this morning to open mat for jiu-jitsu. I asked him, hey man, what are you thankful for? And I said, don't just rattle something off. Tell me heartfelt. Think about it. Don't even answer me right now. And of course, 14-year-old, family and friends. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we all say. And hopefully we are thankful for that. But, I said, look a little deeper. We're driving down this road. We're relatively safe. Every generation, I explained to him, every generation has a group of people that dedicate their lives to protecting and serving. And you have first responders, you have LEOs, and you have the military. So I said, we're driving down this road knowing that there's law enforcement out there in our county. If we get hurt, there's first responders that'll come and help us. And in a bigger picture, there's our military that protects us day in and day out, every day, 24/7. So big thanks from the Stickbow Chronicles to all of you first responders, LEOs, and military personnel. Appreciate what you do. Bottom of our hearts. One more thank you, and that's to the sponsors. The Footed Shaft, Kifaru International, Ironwill Outfitters, Selway Archery, and of course, Blackwidow Bows. Hope you guys all have a great week. That's all I got. Stay after it. Roger out.
All right, guys, this is Bryan Burkhardt, and I'm here with Dr. Ben Pinney in Kodiak, Alaska. And we are on a Sitka blacktail deer hunt. We did a drop camp last year, and we were both fortunate enough to kill nice bucks and hoping to do a repeat. But, last winter was pretty rough on the deer herd on Kodiak. And so, we actually saw, we saw 3 deer today?
4 and 3 bucks.
Yeah, and one really nice buck by camp. But, we did quite a bit of glassing this evening and didn't see near the deer we normally see. in the evening. But it's the first night, and we spent most of the day, getting dropped off. So we flew in. It was a beautiful day to fly in, and got camp set up. So we're in really good shape from that standpoint, and it is getting cold. So it's definitely going to be, what would you say, in the lower teens tonight?
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Right now.
So it's going to be cool weather, and hopefully they'll get them moving. And like I said, tomorrow will be a really good test in terms of, the impact of the winter and how many deer we actually see. So anyway, we're looking forward to this adventure, and we'll give you guys a daily recap. And so I don't know, Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, we just got to find out. Wake up in the morning and see what the winter damage was.
Yeah.
But there's fresh tracks.
Yeah, we saw fresh tracks, and we saw a really big fresh bear tracks.
Really big.
Right by the tent. So I went to fill up the water filter. We've got a gravity water filter, and I filled it up in a creek. And as I was walking back to the tent, I crossed some big brown bear tracks, and they were probably, I don't know, 20 yards, 30 yards from the tent.
Yeah.
So, but he was just walking through, so we didn't see him. But anyway, it should be a good adventure, and like I said, we'll give you a daily recap. But anything else, Ben?
No. We're good to go. I'm ready to crawl in my sleeping bag with my down comforter. It is cold.
It's cold. So, all right, guys, we'll check in tomorrow. Over and out. All right, it is day 2, November 1st in Kodiak, Alaska, and Ben and I are in the teepee, and we had a pretty good day. So, deer numbers are, down from last year because of the winter kill like we talked about last night, but I actually saw 25 deer today. So when I was going out, I saw we have a big clear area that you can see across to another mountain, and I saw 8 or 10 deer in that valley, that river valley. And so that's pretty cool, but they were just kind of moving through and going to the other mountain. And then I got to my spot, and I don't know, I'd say about 10 o'clock, saw a buck up in the sun, but in the alders in the, kind of mid-mountain, if you will. And then I saw a couple of does up there with them, so that was kind of neat. And, Ben, how did your morning go?
Yeah, I saw as soon as I left the camp, it's like, holy cow, there's deer. Within seconds.
Yeah.
And, just played cat and mouse, and I wound up, as I was watching 2 bucks out in that open area, I was just kind of set back in the brush, maybe 15 yards, and at first I thought it was a shrew, like it was just the right quietness and noise, or the right distance from me, and so I didn't really pay attention to it. And then all of a sudden it kept getting louder and louder, and a buck popped out about 15 yards from me, pretty kind of mid-size fork with brow points, and it was just one of those, where it's just too all of a sudden to even get an arrow knocked, and before he saw me, and he didn't take off. He just kind of turned around and went the other way, but
just never gave you a shot opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah.
And but just watched deer off and on throughout the day. I think I only saw 14 deer, which is still pretty good.
Yeah.
I had kind of an exciting moment. I'm still not 100%. I'm pretty sure that I called them in, but I was watching this buck and a doe, and I thought, man, I'll just call this doe in, and the buck will come right after her, and I called, and they just stood there watching. And I've never had a lot of great luck with deer coming into the call once I've seen them, and I'm not sure if it's just because it's more open, and in those open areas they like to see what they're coming into, but they kind of watched me, and I tried some softer calling and quieter calling, and they just weren't coming in. And all of a sudden they both looked off to their left and my right, and I thought, oh man, they see something. and it was the big guy. He came walking right in. He was moving his head around, kind of like he was looking.
Big brown bear?
Yeah, big brown bear.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure I called him in, and he came in looking for whatever was making that scrumptious noise.
And then he got the visual with the other deer.
Yeah, I think he saw the other deer and kind of went over towards them, and they took off. And so that was kind of the end of my day. I circled back out, because when he disappeared, I had no idea if he was going to circle around the brush and just try, do a loop and see if he could find what was making that noise still. So
what time was that?
Probably around 3 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay.
And so at that point, I didn't want to be in the brush, so I backed out and kind of got out in the open and headed halfway back towards camp, where I saw all the deer this morning, and just kind of watched. But I didn't see anything else the rest of the day. So.
Well, I thought you saw something across the valley.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I saw some deer across the valley, but oh yeah, there were some there. I did see some caribou.
Yeah.
Way off, in the Bain Valley. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. What
I saw
time
a
did
few
you see
caribou,
them?
but I saw some. I wasn't sure that what I was looking at, but I realized I probably saw them pretty early on, and I just wasn't in my head to be thinking caribou or reindeer or whatever.
Yeah, they're just for the listeners, they're a feral reindeer, but you buy a caribou tag for them, so it's pretty cool to have them around though. But I had a really cool evening. It was I had moved up where I'd seen that buck and doe earlier, and I was just sitting there, and I'd cleared out a little spot, and it was a pretty good spot because the sun was hitting that side of the mountain, and then you were out of the wind, so it's pretty protected. And so I was sitting there in glassing, and I was seeing deer off in a distance. And so when I say 25 deer, they weren't all on top of me. I mean, I was looking long range, so those are included in the count. But right about 4 o'clock, I heard, or about 4:15, I heard the alders just cracking, and all of a sudden I saw this buck chase this doe out of the alders and ran her right down into this little bowl that was right below me, and then he broke off from her. He got her down in that kind of protected area, and then he broke off, and he was just raking his antlers and putting his scent on the brush around the area, and she was just off feeding. And anyway, all of a sudden, I could hear him grunting, and every once in a while he would do a little snort wheeze too. And then I heard another snort wheeze, and I could see this buck above him and the doe, and I could see him making a circle. And then all of a sudden, I just hear this snort wheeze, and you could see the posturing of these deer. All right, sorry for the break in the action there. We heard something walking behind the teepee real close, so we had to go check it out. But I think it's either a deer or maybe a fox, so good thing it wasn't a bear. But anyway, back to the story. The one buck came out and started snort wheezing, and you could tell the second one was a bigger buck. He was a real heavy 4x4, and the other one was 6 point, and he actually came out, and then that 6-point just walked up the hill. You could tell he wasn't real happy. And then he went in the brush and just started thrashing the brush and raking. And then the bigger buck came in, close up to the doe, and then he just started raking brush as well and continued to snort and wheeze. And so it was pretty cool. And then the doe was working her way towards me, and then she was just milling around and then started working the other way. And I'm like, well, she's leaving, and then that guy's he's going to walk after her. So I actually went out and started walking towards the bigger buck, but he didn't run away, but ended up walking away from me and actually away from the doe. So you could tell he wasn't real happy either, but he didn't spook out of there. He just knew something wasn't right. So anyway, overall a pretty cool night, and pretty pleased with the amount of deer we saw so far.
It was literally a pretty cool night.
Oh yeah. And that's the other thing. Last night we were talking about it going down in the teens. It was definitely down in the single digits. And it's getting cold now. I mean, there's frost on the teepee, and it was pretty chilly in the morning getting up. And I don't have the wood stove here because it's not the best place to have a fire with all the bears around. But anyway, we're making do, and we've got good sleeping bags and good air mattresses with down in them and that, so we're okay. But it's pretty cool getting ready in the morning. So anything else, Ben?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we're on the right path, and just need to keep getting after it.
Yep.
And having opportunities.
All right, guys, we'll check in tomorrow.
Over and out.
Over and out. All right, Stickbow Chronicle listeners, it's November 2nd, and Ben and I again are in the teepee. And we're still seeing deer, so that's a good thing. But Ben, you had a pretty adventurous day. Why don't you tell them about your day?
Yeah, I started out a little late, and but that's okay. Had a few things. Our bear fence needed a little attention, and had my gun holster fall apart, so I had to put that back together. But I've always kind of had the attitude that whatever happens, it's just meant to be, and so it can have zero effect usually on whether or not you get something or see something. And so I headed out a little late, and I decided to go check it was a really small, high little bowl valley that I found last year, and it was out of the wind a little better than other areas, and I know it was on the sunny side of the mountain. And last year when I walked up there, as I just kind of walked into this area, deer just started popping up and jumping out. I mean, and I think there was like, I don't know, 10 or 15 deer or something that were just in this real small little bowl. And I think they were getting out of the weather, so I thought it would be a good place to try. And I saw 4 or 5 deer on my way there, and a couple of bucks, and one really nice one that was close to Bryan, so I was hoping maybe it'd kind of scoot over the ridge and head over by him, but I got to that little valley, and there were some tracks, and it was extremely cold, and by the way, the wind was just, man, it was just cooking today.
Bad today.
And like my face and nose are still just red from the wind. But there was nothing in the valley, and so I kind of sat there and had a hot coffee and enjoyed the view. It was pretty. Saw the caribou again today.
Oh, cool.
Way off, but and I got my stuff together, and I found a deer trail, and there were some tracks on it, so I just started hiking down it, and it was kind of going down the ridgeline. So a lot of these ridgelines have pretty heavily used game trails on them, and so just kind of hiking down that trail, and there was some cover, so I couldn't see very far. It was kind of like some up and down, and I was going up, and just as my head popped over the edge, there was a buck staring at me at like 20 yards. And he started coming in kind of like he was curious, and took a few steps my way, and at about like maybe 18 yards, all he gave me was head and his neck, and so I didn't have a shot. And he turned around, and I thought, man, he's headed out. But I could hear him down in the brush, and he was just circling down below me, and so I backpedaled a little bit and got him. He came out of the brush about, I thought it was maybe 35 yards. Turns out it was 28 yards. But I took a shot, and I just overestimated the distance and shot over his back. But it was great.
That's
he was,
cool. You got a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the moral of the story that just plays over and over and over again in so many of my hunts is right when you think there's nothing, there's something, and so had a real cool experience there, and that's just how it goes. Just overestimated the distance, and so I continued on my way, and actually wound up finding at least 4 or 5 other bucks. And one of them was one of the bigger bucks I've seen. And he was solid 3 points on each side with brow tines. So I guess that would be
an Eastern
8 point. And just thick, dark horns, and they were really thick and massive, and just a gorgeous deer. And I watched him. He was way down below in the wide open. I thought there's just no chance at getting him, but he just decided to watch him. It was sunny, and it was still below freezing, but it was significantly warmer. I was out of the wind, and so I watched him. There was another buck. It was a big fork with brow points, and a few does walking around, and I had nothing else happening, so I figured I'd just sit on them for a while, and he kind of started coming up my way a little bit, and so I kind of had a wild idea. I threw the doe hat on and shook the brush around a little bit and just kind of peeked up just enough to let him see me, and he looked, and it got his attention, but he just kept heading away, kind of indirectly away, not straight away, but he was headed up towards this saddle, and I thought, oh man, well, several times I shook the brush. I think I grunted at him once, and he kept looking back at me, and he could definitely see the doe hat.
Yeah.
And I've had just enough luck with it to know that it's worth trying, but he just kept going away. So I circled way around to get ahead of him in the saddle, because he was headed uphill and towards the saddle, and started sneaking back, and I had dropped my pack where I had originally first seen him and was watching him, and couldn't find him. I saw his buddy, that big forkhorn with eye guards down below, and so I knew I was in the right spot, and I had the wind, and then I started backtracking, because I didn't want to circle too far and get the wind wrong. All of a sudden I just looked up, and he was literally standing over my backpack. and just, so
if he would have stayed there,
yeah, he came right up to it. He just was playing coy and decided to.
Well, 2 good encounters, man. That's not bad.
Yeah, and I did a little more circling, and eventually he kind of disappeared. I don't know where he went, but it was just a beautiful deer.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, I actually saw 11 deer today, but most of them were quite a ways away. I had 2 smaller bucks, Eastern 6 points, at about 75 yards. That was the closest deer I had to me today, but they're still moving around, but the amphitheater this afternoon that I'm hunting, I only saw one small 4-point, so it was a pretty slow evening for me. But it was cold. That wind was beating me up all day, and I think this morning it was probably in the low teens at the highest.
I think so. Yeah.
with pretty good wind. We got a north wind, and we talked to the pilot, and we've been advised that we won't get above freezing for our entire hunt, and most likely it'll be in the teens during the day, and in a high of 25 or 27 in a couple days. But and then you saw some ice.
Yeah, I saw plenty of ice forming on the little lakes and ponds and everything around here, and so we're keeping a close eye on it to make sure we don't freeze in. When we talked to the air company, they didn't seem too concerned about where we were. That they thought we'd be okay, but we're gonna just keep an eye on things.
But they did say some guys got frozen in today on the lake.
They said one of their hunters groups got frozen.
Well,
I don't know what they're gonna do.
There's always a bright side to everything. I mean, it's cold, so it's you've got that. But the good thing is, last year we had rain pretty much every day.
Yeah.
We're not going to have rain this trip.
No.
We'll have snow, if anything. We had a little bit of snow today, but anyway, we're having fun in Alaska, trying to stay warm, and our water, we've got a collapsible water jug that's pretty much frozen every morning, and my gravity filter that's frozen like a rock.
I don't know how we're going to get that ice out of there.
No, I don't know. We may just have to cut it out, but anyway, we'll check in tomorrow. But anything else, Ben?
No.
All right, over and out. All right, guys, it is November 3rd, Election Day, and Ben and I have no clue who won the election, and maybe you guys don't either. And I don't really care as long as Trump won. So anyway, we're not really too worried about the election. We had a pretty good day today. So Ben, why don't you share your story?
Yeah, just saw a lot of deer. I stopped counting in the 20s, and I'm sure I saw over 30 deer. And as soon as I went back to where I saw that big buck the day before, but it's a long hike. And as soon as I kind of got over, I have to go past the bowl that Bryan hunts, but I have to go up above it, and so I can kind of peer down in there. But I can look over the backside, which is where he got his buck last year, and there were 8 deer running around. There was 3 different bucks chasing does, and a lot of rut activity, but there just wasn't a great, with the wind, the way the wind was, there wasn't a great way to get down there and without just spooking everything and messing it up. So I just watched him a little bit and then headed on down, and I got to that nice sunny hillside, and it's a real long hillside, and there's a big strip of probably at least several hundred yards wide of alder and willow at the base of this hill. So this hill runs kind of east-west, and there's not a lot of brush on the hillside. It's mostly grass. There's a few little strips of brush, but there's not really much for cover aside from using the contour of the hill. But those deer just love it. It's out of the wind mostly, and it's super sunny, and so they just they're all hanging out there, I think.
Yeah, with it this cold, that's a good spot to be.
I wanted to be there. It's incredible. As soon as you crest over the ridge, that wind is just like just air compressor in your face, and as soon as you take a few steps back off, it's super nice and calm. A few gusts here and there, but nothing like the other side. So they like it, and I like it, and I spent the whole day there just kind of playing around, I wasn't too aggressive. I was kind of trying to be low key and not scare too much, hoping something would wind up just coming past me. And I had a small forkhorn and a doe come in. I threw the doe hat on again, and I'm just a glutton for that thing. But the few times when it works, it just works great. So I just keep trying it, and they came into about 18 yards, and that little buck was just not quite what I was hoping for. So it's fun to see him in close, and I was telling Bryan, it's like, well, maybe if he was at 10 yards and he looked away, it might have been a different story. But
well, man, seeing 30 deer and having
plenty,
deer in range for a shot, that's a pretty good day.
Yeah, and there were lots of other there were multiple other really nice bucks that I was watching, and I had a couple other that were kind of interested. I think they got my wind. Yeah. And on the way back home,
the wind was swirling a little bit today.
It was really swirly, yep. So it wasn't ideal. But all you can do is try. And on the way back home, I ran into another buck, actually right where, almost exactly where I missed the one yesterday. Okay. And man, he just let me dog him for a quarter mile, I bet. It was a long ways, and he would trot off a little ways and then slow down and kind of look back, and I'd get behind some contour and scoot up close again. And I mean, he could hear me making all kinds of noise doing it. But and at one point I had him at 26 yards, and it was so windy and gusty that I knew that my arrow would be sideways by the time it hit him. And so I was waiting for the wind to calm down, and right when it did, I was lining up and about to put tension on and it's windy right now.
You can probably hear the wind, but
anyways, about to put tension on the string, and he, of course, turned and started moving away, and I never had any better opportunities at him. But a lot of deer, a lot of sun, and beautiful country, and it was a great day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's again, today was very cold. You can hear the wind probably in the background, the teepee's buffeting, but yeah, I went back to what I call the amphitheater, and I keep saying, well, this will probably be the last day I'll hunt this, because I've hunted it and you'd think the deer would get spooked, but I saw 14 deer today, and one really good buck is a 8-point with the fork G2, so it's a really nice buck. And at one point I had 4 bucks and 4 does in the valley, or in this amphitheater, and this big guy was moving off the other bucks and raking his antlers, and just pretty good rut activity. So nothing too close for a shot. I had a 4-point at about 30 yards, but didn't even pick up the bow, so just watched them. And then I actually watched, at one point there were 4 does in this amphitheater, and I watched them bed down. And so that's pretty cool to just see them relax and then bed down for the afternoon. And then I saw a few more deer this evening, but nothing really in close. And it's so cold with snow on the ground that it's crunchy. So it's one where you can't really go, make a stalk. If you're just walking slowly through high grass or something, you might get away with it. But everything snaps in this amphitheater where I'm at. So I just pretty much sat still and was hoping deer would filter by me, but it didn't happen. So we'll try again tomorrow. It's supposed to be cold again. And what are you thinking, Ben?
I'm just thinking about El Nino coming.
Oh yeah,
Thursday
is supposed to warm up an extra 2 degrees. So but
I'm excited for that.
This yeah, man, again, we keep saying it, but the good thing is we don't have to wear rain gear. The bad thing is it's freezing. So it's I think it's the coldest I've been on Kodiak in terms of weather. Normally it's about 35 degrees and high winds and rain, but it's been in the low teens with wind. So it's with the wind chill. I don't know what it is, but it's pretty cold. But we're gonna hit it again tomorrow. Anything else, Ben?
No.
All right, guys. Chat tomorrow. Over and out. All right, it is November 4th, and Ben and I are finished with another day of hunting deer on Kodiak, and it was a pretty good day. I actually started out the morning, got outside the teepee, and had a doe staring at me, and behind her was a small buck, and so I pretended like I was a deer and bent down and grabbed some grass and put it in my mouth, and I guess it wasn't very convincing because she took off, took the buck with her. But then I walked to where I walked to a spot in this what I call the amphitheater, and I was about halfway up the hillside, and I've kind of hollowed out in the willows a ground blind. So I sat there, and then maybe 10 o'clock I saw a really nice 8-point chasing around a doe towards the bottom of the amphitheater, and then maybe an hour later I saw a small buck messing around with another doe. So that was it for a while, and then at 1 o'clock all of a sudden I heard something like antlers hitting alders or willow brush, and so I grabbed my bow, and then a couple seconds later out pops this high rack 7-point about 10 yards away. And I think I was actually, maybe where I made my ground blind was where he beds, because at that point the sun hits it pretty good. And anyway, he actually walked towards me, so he was walking straight towards me and ended up getting 3 yards away. So it was pretty cool, and I'm crouched down with tension on the string and just waiting for him to turn. And he was smelling, and he knew something wasn't right. And then the wind would gust, and he would snap his neck around, and he just was getting a little jittery. And then he turned to basically leave, and I started to do a slow draw, and then he got out of there pretty good. So he didn't spook like a whitetail, but he didn't offer me a shot. So it was pretty cool having an encounter at 3 yards though. So I saw only 7 deer today, but I'm set up where if I see deer come through this area, they're going to be in shooting range. So it's feeling pretty good about it. I'll probably try that spot tomorrow, and hopefully that buck will come back. I don't know, but this year's been a year of close encounters for me. I shot that black bear at 5 yards. On the moose hunt, I had a cow moose at 1.5 yards, and then this deer was, no kidding, a legit 3 yards away. So it was pretty cool. I love those close encounters, and to me that's what bow hunting, with a stick bow is all about. So all in all, a great day, man. I thought it was going to go down when that buck came in, and I just wanted him to keep walking, but he got a little nosy, so he saved his life. But Ben, how did your day go?
It was cold.
Yeah, it's another cold day.
And I don't know if I heard you mention, but for context, it snowed a couple inches last night.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention
so
that.
It's really snowy out there, and the snow was pretty kind of squeaky because it's so cold. So it's not. I guess it's a little quieter than it was when everything was just frozen. But
it's not ideal stalking conditions.
No. Yeah.
Still hunt is probably the best way to go, but
yeah, I went to the opposite side of the saddle that Brian's been hunting. So on the other side of the mountain, I didn't go on we call it the exercise circuit, where I had been getting into quite a few deer the last few days. It's just a really long hike to get up there, and so I just tried something different and gave him some rest. But I kind of wanted to find a little spot to sit on the edge of the alders, because we've seen deer traveling through there, and that's how Brian shot one last year. So catching them right on the edges, and so I saw about 14 deer, but I had a really big broad view, so most of those weren't in range. When I finally got to a spot where the alders and willows narrowed down to about maybe a 50-yard swath. It was kind of a little isthmus sort of funnel, and there's a pretty good spot to kind of just set back in, and I broke some little bit of branches for shooting lanes and hung out for a while. And there was 2 sets of fresh tracks that had gone through there earlier in either the night or the morning, so I knew that it was a pretty decent spot. And right about the time I got tired of it and it was starting to get close to time to give up, I thought I'd just still hunt my way back along the edge of the alders, and I went like probably 25 yards and a buck was coming right through. I just got up too early, but he was already in bow range, but just thick wall of brush, and he saw me before I saw him, so it was not a shooting opportunity of any means. But then I went back to the spot. I said, all right, I better go sit there some more. and then I kind of gave up, and after another half hour, because then it was really starting to get closer to time, for sure time to leave, and man, I left again maybe 40 yards, and a beautiful black fox went right through that spot. There was a few hare tracks in there, so I knew he's searching for those snowshoe hares. And then I went a little further down. I tried squeaking him in, and he didn't have any of it. And I went a little further down, maybe 50 yards further, and then I saw a doe go right back through right where I was standing. So anyhow, you'd have thought I learned that lesson long ago.
So the moral of the story is stay in your spot.
Yeah, but saw a lot of deer and some good bucks, and they were just all they. It's funny because yesterday they were all down where I was, and today they were all up on the hillside. So it's just one of those.
Yeah, you just never know.
Yep.
Just rotate, but
yeah.
This weather, it's I was getting pummeled by that wind all day. I mean, and it's it's gusty, and it's just a cold wind. I mean, just hitting you in the face the whole day, and it takes its toll on you. It's like a grind. And when I looked at the forecast coming up here, it was like low of 27, high of 45 is what I was seeing. So I packed accordingly, and I don't have near the clothes I need to have. So it's a grind making it through the day, but somehow you figure out how to stay in the game and make it. But hopefully it warms up. I don't know. We're supposed to get a little warm up tomorrow, but I'll see it when I'll believe it when I see it.
We're gonna
or
find
when
out.
I feel it.
We're gonna find out one way or the other.
Yeah. So anyway, anything else, Ben?
Yeah. Negative. We keep referring back to there's an article in Bowhunter magazine a long time ago about Roy Roth and Dwight Shue were doing a South End Kodiak hunt and got froze in, and now I know how they were feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all the small lakes are already frozen, so hopefully we stay out of trouble here. If not, we're gonna have a long pack.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't even want to think about that.
Nope.
So,
well, let's just shoot a deer tomorrow.
Sounds good. All right, over and out, guys. All right, guys, it is Thursday, November 5th, and Ben and I are in the teepee, and you can probably hear it raining, and that's kind of the story of today. But when we went out this morning, it wasn't raining. I got to where I was going to sit and glass this amphitheater, and I I actually saw about 10 deer out in this kind of flat area that I overlooked, and they were just out there feeding. Then they worked their way into the amphitheater and through the willows and more of the cover. But I was sitting up there, and all of a sudden I heard, like, raking, like I did the other day when I had the deer 3 yards away. And I'm like, oh, here we go. We've got a buck that's rubbing his antlers, and he's going to walk, right in my range and be able to get it done. But I never did see him, so I think he was just working over the shoulder of this hillside that I'm sitting on. But I got to glass 2 really good bucks in the bottom of the amphitheater, and one was a really nice 8-point. Actually ran off this other one. I think it was a 7-point. But there was quite a bit of deer activity this morning going on, especially at the lower levels. And then it started to sleet a little bit, and it was a south wind had come in, and then it actually started to rain. So it warmed up a little bit, but along with that came the rain. So I did not have my rain gear with me, so I was on my way back to the teepee to get my rain gear, and then all of a sudden I saw this doe pop up, and she was just staring at me. So I shot some video of her, and then I just started walking towards her, and then behind her I saw a buck that was in the willows, and she started getting nervous and working her way back closer to the buck, and then they were walking, and so I'm like, they were walking about 25 yards away, and I'm trying to find an opening, and I finally find one. The doe walks through there, and then the buck came a few seconds later, and I shot, but got a deflection. So no go on that deer, but still a pretty cool encounter. But after that, well, I guess, Ben, why don't you talk about your day?
I woke up and headed out, and it was snowy, and I walked past the amphitheater to the far end, I was headed for where I had called that bear in on the first day. And man, there were deer. There were deer everywhere, out in the field, down in the amphitheater, on the hillside, and I was feeling good. I was pretty sure I was going to get some action, and when I started getting close to which close is like probably maybe 300 yards or so from where I was gonna kind of do some watching and observing, there was a buck up in some brush above me, maybe 60 yards, just thrashing brush. There was a doe making all kinds of bleats and calls in the brush between us, and so I was just going slow, trying to keep the wind and see what played out. And right about that time is when I'm calling it El Nino hit. And,
yeah, it was windy.
Yeah, just started sleeting, turned into rain, and man, then the wind picked up, and I literally saw deer running for cover. They were running. I don't know if they were running because of the storm, probably not, but that's my story.
Well, it was blowing pretty good. I mean, I'd say gust of 60 to 70 mile an hour, so not ideal hunting conditions.
No, I stuck it out, but it was I saw nothing after that. It was just I remember I put my hand up above my eyes, kind of like to shield them, kind of like the brim of a hat, so that I could try to see, and rain was still hitting me squarely in the eyes. So that was true horizontal rain.
Yeah, and I got back to the teepee and I got my rain gear and then went back out, and I went back up to where I was glassing in the morning, and then I was just, getting pummeled by that wind. So I said, well, I'm going to work myself, over on the opposite side of the mountain and get out of the wind. But when I got there, it was just as bad. So the wind was swirling, and it was just, I got soaked walking around. Not from my rain gear kept me dry, but I was just sweating from walking through all the thick brush. And I wouldn't recommend doing that because I'm pretty wet right now. But anyway, we've got 2 days left of hunting.
2 days, and we both had a shot opportunity so far. So,
and we're seeing deer.
Yeah.
So can't complain. But you got it done on the last day last year, so we're not out of the game yet.
Nope.
But hopefully this wind will die down and the rain will stop. And we'll have two good days left of hunting. So we'll check in with you guys tomorrow, but hopefully we can get it done. All right, over and out. Okay guys, I think it's Friday, November 6th, and it's actually going to be our last evening because the weather's supposed to really get bad, and so we're going to go out a day early so we can actually get flown out. But today was pretty uneventful. It was warm, it was quiet, and pretty mild actually in terms of overall temperature. I just sprinkled a little bit, but nothing serious, and no wind. I went out and went to a different spot this morning. And it was one of those spots where you're not going to see a lot of deer, but if you see one, high probability you're going to get shot. Well, I didn't see any deer this morning. So, and I saw one deer this afternoon way off in the distance. And so Ben, you had a little more action, but not much.
Yeah, not much. And when I got to where I was headed, which was where I had called the bear in morning one, which is same general area where I shot a deer last year. There was sign and tracks and trails and lots of fresh sign. When I got in there, within a few minutes of, not even a few minutes of setting up, I heard a buck wheezing and then raking brush, and it was pretty close, and he started getting closer, and I thought, oh man, here we go. He had the option to go right or left, and if he went right, he was going to walk past me about 15 yards, and if he went left, he was out of my life, and he went out of my life. He went left, and that's about all. I did see one other buck way off in the distance, and nothing else. We were discussing earlier that because yesterday, it was just sideways rain all day, and then right as we were getting ready for bed, things really calmed down, and so we think the deer just were up enjoying that.
Yeah, I think
lack of storm weather.
They were feeding all night.
Yeah, so they were up all night feeding, and it was weird because usually, there's been plenty of deer to go around, so they just were holed up, probably sleeping from partying all night. But
definitely fewer deer this year.
Yeah. So what would you say percentage-wise?
I would say deer were down 50 to 75%, somewhere in that range. I
think that's accurate.
But we both had shot opportunities.
Yeah. So couldn't really ask for too much more. And then things got a little exciting this evening. Right when I was getting I don't know, I just had this, it was kind of weird because there was, like Bryan said, there was virtually zero wind all day. You could hear ravens on the adjacent mountains cawing at each other, and I've had it happen where, when you're moose hunting, it's so quiet and your stomach grumbles just a little, and you're like, was that a grunt? I mean, that's how quiet it is.
Yeah.
and so that's how quiet it was today. And, you know, tiny little noises you think are something way off in the distance. And just a really quiet, kind of somber day. And I just had a feeling that it just felt like a bear day, I told Bryan. And end of the day, just as I was packing my stuff up to head down, I looked out in the kind of the valley below, and there was a big boy kind of walking our direction. And so I sat down and watched him, and he was just trudging along in his big old hump and sway back, and in a beautiful Kodiak bear. And right when I could tell he was starting to get my wind after I've been watching him for a few minutes, and he'd put his nose up in the air a few times, and he'd keep walking, and finally he just got a huge nose full, and man, he just took off, which is great. He took off the other way, and I thought he went in the brush right where Bryan was, but it turns out he just went behind a little
So I saw him coming in the flat area, the open area, and he just kept running. And what was amazing is he would run in full stride and just look to his right, and keep running in full stride and look to his right. He did that multiple times. So he would be running and then checking out the hillside, the mountainside at the same time, and he ran right towards camp. And that's one thing I didn't mention. When I was going out hunting this morning, I noticed maybe about 75 yards behind camp in the tall grass a bear bed, and so I'm sure he was protecting us from all the deer. But got to see him tonight, which was pretty cool. And he did run. We followed his tracks all the way back past camp, so he ran right by camp again, and hopefully he kept going.
And the ground is still mostly frozen, and there were just big scuff marks.
Yeah,
where he had just
running.
Yep. Catching footholds.
Yeah, so this is going to be the last recap for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you felt like you got a taste of Kodiak. It's the story on Kodiak this year was just really cold temperatures up until the last couple of days, and now it's pretty mild. Winds really sat down, and you really not don't even need a fire at this point. So.
But tomorrow afternoon, it's supposed to
it's supposed to change. So we talked to the Air Service, and they said if you don't get out today or tomorrow, then it's going to be a few days. So we're going to cut it short today and head out tomorrow. But had a great time, Ben. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. It's always a pleasure.
We'll have to do this again.
Done deal.
Maybe we'll do it for like 2 weeks.
That sounds pretty good to me.
All right, guys. Anything else, Ben?
No. Hope you enjoyed it.
All right. Over and out.